Welcome Fiber Friend, I'm Jess and this is Adventures in Knitting. Today I'm going to give you a little bit of a WIP update, but it's an expanded WIP update because in working on these projects this week, I fell down a lot of rabbit holes. So I'm going to bring you down those rabbit holes with me. In addition, I'm going to be talking about my project bags. I get my project bags from a local maker here in New Hampshire, so I know they don't get a lot of spotlighting in the knitting community because she is a local maker, but these are by far my favorite project bags. She does have an online group, so you can order from her, so I definitely want to give her a shout out in today's video. And I'm also going to talk about a knitting journal. I do have an analog knitting journal. It's just a notebook. I mentioned in last week's video that I use my Row Counter, which is an app to manage my patterns, but then I go to a paper journal and write down all of my notes in making the pattern, or if I learned a new technique while doing the pattern, I like to write that down as well. I know a lot of people have a lot of apprehension about paper journals and a lot of barriers to using one, and so I want to share how I use a paper journal in case that encourages you to start your own journaling journey. You will see a lot of Disney in this video. If you're new here, I am a Disney adult. That means I am an adult who is very much into Disney anything. I grew up in the 90s, which I think is a golden age of Disney. So if you're younger than me or older than me, you may be like, what is up with this lady in Disney? But if you are my age, you may be going, yeah, I get it. I should also mention, because I don't think I've mentioned it here on the channel before, I'm an author. I write books. So a lot of adjacent things in my life pertain to storytelling. And a lot of my storytelling development happened in Disney. Walt Disney himself revolutionized storytelling in the last century. So he is somebody that I do admire for that aspect of what he did for storytelling. And so you'll see a lot of Disney in today's video. Let's get started. While I'm talking about the projects that I'm working on this week, I really want to focus on the yarns that I'm working with, because this past week I have really fallen in love with a variety of yarns, and that's what's really propelled me down this rabbit hole of researching these yarns, finding out more about these yarns, and finding patterns for future projects. And that will be the focus here, is all these really beautiful yarns, including an update at the end of this video on my Antipodes sweater. So stay tuned for that. Let's jump right in with my project bags. My project bags are made by Kelly from Happily Ever After Sewing Boutique. Are you ready? That is the perfect project bag. Am I right? It does sit up on its own. It's deep enough to hold my yarn and my needles, but it's not too big. And I love the zippers because she always does a unique zipper pull. So this is a Toy Story bag, and the zipper is the aliens from the claw machine. I have several of these bags. This one's from a Goofy movie. Again, sits up on its own, and it's a Goofy pull on the zipper. She also has these bucket bags. I love these. Again, not too big. I see her every fall at craft shows, and I was carrying this bag around at the last show where I picked it up. I got so many compliments on it. I love the depth of the handles. They do fit comfortably on the shoulder. It has a nice water resistant bottom that does sit up on its own, and you don't have any zippers to contend with. I know some people don't like zippers because your yarn can get caught on it. So no zippers on this one. This is fitting very comfortably 3 sizable balls of yarn, but this bag that I'm using has my entire Antipodes sweater in it, to give you an idea of size. I will link her group down below. She does do shipping. You can purchase from her online. Again, it's Kelly from Happily Ever After Sewing Boutique. She does a fantastic job. All of her bags are lined with a really nice canvas material. I just love these bags. I have so many of them. And she does have them in smaller sizes. I will be checking out what she has this fall when I visit her at all the craft shows that she's at here in New Hampshire, to find a smaller size that fits just a ball of yarn and my sock needles, now that I'm a sock knitter. So those are my bags. I will link down below so that you can check out what she has to offer. They are fantastic bags. She's a real person. I've met her. She's very awesome. You can even message her through Facebook. She does custom orders, and I've recently, like this morning, asked if she could put a wristless strap on these bags. So there's a strap to hang on to them, because I often grab these and go when I'm running errands and I know I'm going to wait in a waiting room. It's great to have a strap on this to carry it around with me. Now let's talk about a knitting journal. I said you were going to see a lot of Disney today. There's a lot of Disney. I just use any old random notebook. This one's really pretty. This is prettier than my standard notebook. I don't know if it'll show up on the camera, the etching in here of Belle and the Beast. I know people go on a search for the perfect notebook, but I think, you won't find it. Our needs are constantly changing as humans, so you can be on that search forever and not find it. I would instead choose things that you really notice about a notebook and enjoy. So for me, that's the paper. And believe it or not, this is a notebook I picked up at Disney World a couple years ago. The paper in here is lush. It is really nice paper. The Rhoda notebooks also have really nice paper, but I would encourage you to just get a blank notebook and decide what you want to put in for notes. So I usually put in anything that I want to remember for next time. If you watched my farm hat video, I constructed that pattern off of the top of my head, which is funny because it was a hat. My husband would really enjoy that joke. Let's not tell him I said that. I put all of the notes for the needle size, the yarn, how much yarn I used, how many rows were in the ribbing around the brim, all of that. I wrote that down in the journal. Each entry is different based on what I want to capture. So I definitely encourage you to get a paper journal and just make it your own. The part about it that will make it accessible for you, meaning you can go back and look up your notes, is I encourage you to make an index. So all this is when I'm going to put an entry in the notebook, I put a page number down here. And then I reference that page number in the index in the front of the book. So I know on page 3, I put in the notes for the beach wrap that I made by Haley Waxberg. So that's my knitting journal in case you're thinking of doing a knitting journal. Keep it simple. Don't get caught up in trying to find the perfect notebook that does the perfect thing and meets all of your requirements. You will always be changing what you need, and so if you have a blank journal, your journal can adapt with you. Let's start talking about some projects. So my first project, I don't even have anymore. It was a sock that I've since frogged, and that was the point. The point was to frog the sock. I was using scrap yarn to teach myself how to knit a sock. So I used a pattern that called for a fingering weight yarn, and I used some scrap DK weight yarn that I had and larger needles so that I could better see the pattern and the pattern construction. It was like taking a pattern and putting it under a magnifying glass. So I could teach myself how to knit the sock in an easier fashion, because fingering weight yarn can be difficult to work with, and especially tiny little needles can be difficult to work with. So I just used scrap yarn. But while I was knitting that sock, it got really big, which it should have. That was the point. I was playing around with it and it was really squishy. And I thought, you know what? This would make a really good fingerless glove. This is my scrap yarn. You can see I haven't even steamed it yet from where I frogged it. This is the Spinster's Daughter, which is a collaboration between Spin Cycle and Farmer's Daughter's Fibers. It is Spin Cycle's wool and Farmer's Daughter's Fibers color palette. I just went on their website today and I see all of these are sold out. I don't know if that's a collab that they'll do again. but it got me thinking about this yarn because it is so squishy. I really, really want to knit fingerless mittens. I am cold all the time in the winter, and I have a pair of fingerless mittens that my husband got for me for Christmas one year. I would love to knit another pair in this, and I want to use scraps. So this is also Spinster's Daughter. I used this recently to make the Snoopy hat, in case you remember that from a previous video. And I am loving not only the squishiness of it, but the color palette. The colors are amazing. So I was looking at the Nula Mitts by Layla Raven. I love the simple cabling on these mittens. I've never done cabling before. So this, I think, would be a great pattern to learn cabling. And I'm also thinking about how I can use these scraps together. Like if I did the cuff with this and the main part with this, I think I just love these together. I have no idea what I bought this for originally, but I've used it in several projects now, and this is all that I have left. I love this. I love this fiber. I do understand that I'm considering both a fiber from one manufacturer and colors from another one. So if I were to reproduce this in the fiber that I wanted, SpinCycle just recently released a collaboration with Explorer Knits, which is all solid colors. So if I wanted to do more in this type of yarn with a solid color, but the SpinCycle base, I could look at those Explorer Knits fibers. Or what I really love about this is the jewel tone color. I don't know if it's coming up in the camera. You can see it in the light here. This color has a lot of depth to it. It is really, really rich. And so when I was playing around with this and I knit up that Snoopy hat, I immediately thought of the Soft Current Shawl by Wool and Pine. And I'm specifically eyeing Farmer's Daughter's Fibers Foxy Lady. That's their fingering weight. It is 70% merino, 30% silk. If you're not familiar with the Soft Current Shawl, it is knit flat and then you seam one corner of it to make a loop. So you just put it on over your head and that's how you wear it. So it's kind of like a seamed bandana cowl that you just put over your head and let it drape. So I think the Foxy Lady base from Farmer's Daughter Fiber will give me the color, but also a really nice drape for that shawl. I left my day job 7 years ago and I swore I would never own business casual clothing ever again. It's been my life goal never to have black dress pants in my closet again. And now I lead a very active lifestyle, not only with RVing. If you're new here, my husband and I RV, but I also spend a lot of time gardening. I spend time with the dogs. I'm outside most of the year. I grew up south of Buffalo, New York, so I love the winter. I love the snow. I'm outside all times during the year. So I don't have fancy clothes, but a few times a year I have to attend professional events and I need to look a little bit nicer than my $5 t-shirt. And if you've really been paying attention, you've noticed I wear this t-shirt a lot. It's because I have multiples of the same t-shirt because that's what's easy. But if I'm attending these professional events, I like to have something simple to wear and then accessories to really make that outfit pop. And so that's why I knit so many cowls and so many shawls and so many little scarves. I have little scarves coming up later in this video. I like those accessories to give my outfit color, but I don't have to invest in clothes that I'm only wearing a couple of times a year. This way I can accessorize and that will be the showcase of the piece instead of the clothes themselves that will just end up sitting in my closet. So when I was playing with this yarn, I thought, oh my gosh, a shawl in this color with some really beautiful drape would really make an outfit shine. So that's the first yarn that I'm in love with. It's the Spinster's Daughter, the collab between SpinCycle and Farmer's Daughter Fibers, and the huge rabbit hole that I fell down when I was knitting with this yarn. Let's talk about the next yarn. Oddly enough, I am doing 2 projects right now using West Yorkshire Spinners yarn. If you're not familiar with West Yorkshire Spinners yarn, I feel their story is more of a spotlight than their yarn itself. They are located in Ayr Valley, Yorkshire. They are a family-run business. They started their fiber mill in 1997. If you are familiar with the history of wool at all, it went into sharp decline in the last century as synthetic fibers took dominance in the market. And West Yorkshire Spinners started their mill in the height of that to try to save wool and all of the processes around wool that were at risk of being lost. And so they launched their first line of their own wool in 2012, and that was their blue-faced Leicester, which I have, which is this. You've seen this on the channel before. This is their blue-faced Leicester in Ravine. I am using it to knit The Jaunty by Andrea Mowry. This is knitting up really fast. It is so squishy. And yet that half fisherman's rib is so defined. I'm in love with this wool. This is a delight to work with. It is really well spun, so your stitches come up really clean and they just slide right off the needle. So this was their first line that they released in 2012 of their own wool. They are helped a lot by the British Campaign for Wool, which was initiated by now King Charles. He was Prince of Wales back when he started it. This is an initiative to draw attention to wool in the UK to try to save it and bring it back to a global market. But what I really love, on the West Yorkshire Spinners website, they claim that most of their operations take place within a 20-mile radius of their mill. So their carbon footprint is really, really low. That's something that is important to me. I appreciate supporting a wool business that is ethically sourced and environmentally friendly. So win-win-win for this yarn, and it knits up so beautifully. So this is the Jaunty. This, if you're not familiar with the Jaunty by Andrea Mowry, it is a really flexible pattern. So you can use any weight of yarn, any needle, knit it as big as you want. You basically do the half fisherman's rib increase until you used 45% of your yarn, and then you start the decrease. And that's it. It creates a semi-triangular shawl, scarf, depending on how big you make it. I have something to admit that happened while I was working on this Jaunty. First time I've ever done half fisherman's rib. I had to teach myself how to do it. And I was working on this, totally screwed it up. Like, it's an 8-row repeat. It's really hard to screw up. I screwed it up. That makes sense. I was watching Ghosts UK. Have you seen Ghosts UK? Totally different from the US version of Ghosts. I wouldn't even compare the two. They are entirely different. But Ghosts UK is an addictive show. And as I mentioned, I am an author. I write books. I am very much attracted to good writing. And Ghosts UK has incredible writing. So I was rewatching it again to get ready for the movie that's coming out in October. And I screwed this up. I screwed this up big time. But you will see that I had stitch markers in here. And lesson learned from the other wrap that I had to re-knit entirely. I put stitch markers in where repeats start so that I have a place to rip back to. And I have never successfully ripped back. So I screwed this up. I ripped back to a marker and I was like, and I was at the beginning, so I really didn't have that much that I could have just frogged the whole thing and started over because I was like down here. But I said, no, I'm going to try to rip back to that marker. And I did. And I got the stitches back on the needles and picked up exactly where I was supposed to be because I had all of my markers in. I knew what side was the right side, which was the wrong. I knew from the pattern where I was supposed to be in the fabric. And it was a weird moment where I realized, and this is bad for branding, I may not be a new knitter anymore. I'm not sure, Fiber Friend. I think I may have moved up to maybe advanced beginner. I don't know. I just had a real moment where I realized everything that I've learned so far in my knitting journey came together in that moment, that I could fix this without frogging the whole thing. And I knew exactly how far back to go and what the fabric should look like. And I could identify all the stitches and what was happening where. And it just felt like a really culminating moment of all of the practice that I've been putting into knitting. So did I just ruin the entire point of this channel? Or is the lesson here, don't try to knit while you're watching Ghost UK? That might be the lesson learned here. And because I was enjoying this so much, when I was at the Woolly Thistle a couple of months ago, I also picked up more West Yorkshire Spinners yarn. So you can see here, this is the start of my real sock, not my practice sock. This is their 4-ply signature yarn. It is 75% wool, 25% nylon. This is from their Butterflies collection, and this one is Purple Emperor. This is so amazing. This yarn is beautiful. I'm really enjoying knitting with it. I will be doing many more socks in their 4-ply yarn because I really, really do enjoy it. But while I was working with this, especially when I was knitting the Jaunty, because it was so squishy and it's knitting up what I think is going to be really warm fabric, I immediately thought, I want a giant comfy cardigan in this yarn. And one of the cardigans that's been in my favorites on Ravelry for a long time is the Victory Cardigan by Corinne Tomlinson. This pattern calls for a bulky weight yarn, and West Yorkshire Spinners does have a bulky yarn. It is called the Retreat Twist Chunky. Oh my gosh, the colors are amazing. If you go to their website, not only can you see the various colors, but what's really helpful is they include a photo of what the yarn looks like knit up, which I really appreciate. I like to see a swatch of the yarn when you are getting into variegated yarn like this with all the multiple colors. I have been burned before when I started knitting up a variegated yarn and colors starting to come together in a way that was not pleasing to my eye. And so I really appreciate when a color includes a swatch so you can see how it's going to knit up and the fabric it's going to create. So that is the second yarn that I'm in love with right now. Next, we're going to talk about Junction Fiber Mill. Junction Fiber Mill is in Vermont. It was started in 2020 by friends Peggy and Amanda. They are really, really focused on supporting American wool production. Peggy and Amanda are really working to bring that yarn in from American producers and create beautiful, beautiful squishy yarn with it. I just finished the Quarter Pint Scarf by Samantha Guerin. This is great. You can start to see some of the fade. This is their Making Tracks Light, which is their sport weight yarn in the color Ocean Eyes. So you can start to see a little bit of the fade there. I love this repeated pattern. Again, this is another accessory to give an outfit just a little pop. And while I was knitting this is so squishy. And I really love the colors that Junction Fiber plays with. They're always coming up with new colors. And while I was knitting this, you know what I'm going to say. I said I want to make the Night Shift Shawl by Andrea Mowry in this yarn. And what is really funny, I wrote the script for this video last week. Yesterday, which was Tuesday, Junction Fiber Mill announced new Night Shift bundles. I don't know who is reading whose mind on that one, but that is definitely something I want to do. I want to use their yarn to do the Night Shift shawl. I will link below. They knit up an example in their current color offerings, so you can take a look at that. And I just love that what I was thinking was what somebody else was thinking, and it looks absolutely stunning. I really want to add more mosaic knitting patterns to my knitting arsenal. If you haven't already, I will link the video below where I talk about mosaic knitting, especially when it comes to managing anxiety. So you can go check out that video as well. I really, really enjoy a mosaic knitting pattern, so I want to add more of those to my arsenal, and I will be using Junction Fiber Mill. The next yarn that I want to talk about is another New England yarn, and it's one I haven't even knit with yet. I only caked it. This is as far as I got. And even just caking it, I was like, Yeah, I need more of this yarn in my life. This is Harrisville Designs. They are a New Hampshire producer of yarn. They've been spinning woolen spun yarn since 1794 in Harrisville, New Hampshire. I had the opportunity to go to their mill a few months ago, and it's funny because I've now lived in New England for 20 years, which seems impossible, but apparently it's true. New England history is rich in the textile industry. So a lot of towns in New England are what are called mill towns. They had old mills that were used for textiles. Those mills were built on the many rivers in New England, and the rivers powered the textile mills. They produced fabrics and clothing, shoes. The town I live in was a massive producer of shoes. And so living here now 20 years, I'm used to seeing mill buildings. But I will link Harrisville's website below. They include a lot of information about their history, and it is fascinating. It is a fascinating history and how they have worked not only to keep spinning wool, but to save the historical aspects of the town of Harrisville in New Hampshire. And they have done a remarkable job. It is so well preserved and it's so beautiful. I went there in early spring, so it's still snow on the ground and everything's a little bit muddy. Still beautiful. Absolutely beautiful what they've preserved there. This is their Peace Fleece. I just caked this. Fiber Friend, I'm starting my Christmas knitting already. I need this yarn to knit a hat for a recipient, and so I had caked it to start that hat. And this is the Peace Fleece by Harrisville. It is 50% Navajo Rambouillet and 30% fine wool, 20% mohair. It's so squishy, and it has a beautiful halo to it because of the mohair. This is an initiative started by Harrisville to ensure fair market prices for the Rambouillet raised on the Navajo Nation. It's just so wonderful. It's such a wonderful yarn. I love the depth of the color to it, and it's a lovely marled color that when I was caking this up, I then immediately went to the Harrisville Design website and I said, what else have you got? Because I really love this. And immediately their fingering weight yarn jumped out at me. It's called Shetland. I love the rustic nature of it. And this might seem weird, but oddly enough, this pattern jumped into my head. Fire Within Shawl by Janina Callio. This is a fingering weight held with mohair. These photos I don't think really does the shawl justice. So I had gone into the projects to see what other people had used, and the details in this shawl I think would really stand out with this sort of rustic fingering yarn. So now I've connected those two things in my mind. I really want to try that Shetland yarn for the Fire Within shawl. And for our last yarn today that I want to talk about, you get an Antipodes sweater update. I have to say, Fiber Friend, this is going a lot better than I thought it ever would. So the saddle shoulder is done. I'm going to try to hold this up so it makes sense as a sweater. Saddle shoulder is done. Now it's important to remember that the shoulder is a drop shoulder. So this actually goes down the shoulder. This is not like the back yoke. This is the top part of your shoulder. That's the cutout for the neck, and it goes sort of like this. So you can see I've just picked up the stitches for the back yoke to start that part. I love how Night Bloom is knitting up and how that fade is coming together. I'm loving the contrast, and it is going much more smoothly than I ever dreamed it would. I have the stitches held for the sleeves, and we'll be starting the back yoke. So that means, you know what I'm going to mention because I've now talked about it in a couple videos. Scottish Wool Company. I'm using their fingering weight yarn in Gordon is the colorway. I love this, guys. I love this so much. I want to use more of it. But what I was thinking when I was knitting up this Antipodes sweater is this would be a great weight for a sweater to be worn under a suit coat. Oddly enough, my husband works in one of those mill buildings that are so common here in New England. They're also very, very cold. So in the winter, he likes to layer up, and he does wear a sweater under a suit coat, and I thought this would make a perfect weight sweater. So I immediately thought of the Brighton Pullover by Veronique Avery, which calls for a fingering weight yarn. Fiber Friend, I've never done cables. I keep looking at these patterns that are so far beyond the skill set that I have now. I don't know if my confidence is maybe a little too much, or maybe I'm on the right track here, but I just love this sweater, and it does call for a fingering weight yarn. I love the texture of the fabric that it knits up, and I think it would be great under a suit coat. So those are the 5 yarns that I'm loving right now, and the many, many rabbit holes that I went down this week, and all of the patterns that I've added to my Ravelry, or the ones that I plucked out of favorites in the Ravelry to match with yarn that I'm now absolutely in love with. And just to keep myself on track, and just so everybody knows, this is that 10-day cowl. It is all caked. It's not hidden somewhere in my stash because my stash is organized now. It's all caked and ready to go. I just cleared the needles that I need to get this started, so I will cast this on this week. And the colors just say autumn to me, right? That's gonna make a beautiful autumn cowl. I'm really, really excited about this. So I'm glad the needles are cleared and I can finally get that started. As I mentioned, I also started Christmas gifts already. I can't believe we're here, but Christmas will be here before we know it. And we're getting into the Fall Fiber Festival season, so I know the next few months are going to go really fast. My yarn stash is probably going to explode, and that's okay. That's okay. We need to start planning the patterns that I will be shopping for when I go to Rhinebeck. If you found this video helpful, please consider subscribing. I do greatly appreciate it. There are a lot of you here. I know we live in a world where videos get thousands and thousands of views and thousands of subscribers, but to be honest, I am absolutely thrilled that there are 200 of you here. I just started this channel, and I love that 200 people want to hear what I have to say about knitting, and it just makes me so happy. And I am getting so much out of the comments, so thank you so much for commenting. I'm really enjoying it. I hope you're getting as much out of these videos as I am out of the comments, and just thank you for being here. If you want to see more bad ideas that I have and more incredible mistakes that I make, especially when distracted by British TV, please consider subscribing. I'm sure I will make really bad decisions in the future and continue to make mistakes. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you for the next adventure.